Hello and welcome to the very first Tuesday Tea and Sympathy with Gillian Baker. I'm Gillian Baker, and sorry about the light on my glasses. I've got that blue light stuff on my glasses, which is awesome for being on the computer, but it has this weird glare when I do lives, so I apologize for that. This fluff over here is my grand kitten, Jane Eyre. Um, Hopefully she's going to settle into her basket over there and leave us alone. I'm a couple minutes late because she jumped up on my laptop and turned on the airplane mode, and I had to figure out how to fix that. Anyway, welcome. Today we are talking about behind the scenes sneak peeks from my very first book, Blogging is Murder. And when I first started this book, it was just for a creative outlet. And the only real things that I knew for sure I wanted to include were the fact that my protagonist was a blogger, and that I wanted, since there was going to be a lot of technology involved, I wanted to be able to have this juxtaposition with something old-fashioned. So I wanted the murder to be have some kind of an old-fashioned feel to it. So I ended up deciding on the murderer using hemlock as a way to kill her victim. And that was a lot of fun, and I learned a lot of stuff. So beware. Hey, as we go along, if you have any questions or comments, please pop them in the comment feature over here on the Facebook Live. Sometimes Facebook doesn't show me the comments, so if I don't respond while I'm live, I apologize, but I promise to get back to them after I go off live. So please leave them if you have any questions or comments about the book or anything else about Jane Eyre, or, she's always causing trouble. Anyway, back to the book. So I love that juxtaposition between all this computer technology, and I knew the crime was going to be about hacking, computer hacking, since Jade Blackwell, my protagonist, is a blogger. That was, I think I was blogging at the time, and I think that probably how I came up with the idea is because I was seeing a lot of other bloggers talking about the concern over that during that time period. There was, I think it was called Bleeding Heart. You remember that? Where the some hacker got in and like messed with all kinds of stuff on multiple platforms. And so that was all going in the background. And I was like, wow, that would be a great reason to murder someone, all this hacking stuff. And so because bloggers do this to make their living, that's how people make a living. So it was really important that these people be able to protect their assets. So that's what I started with. Very, very little, but I had a great time doing it, so I kept going. And I realized as I was going along that I needed to have a way to get into the killer's apartment. She ends up being both the hacker / victim. I needed to be able to get into her domicile to poke around as Jade. And what better way to do that than this neighbor? So that's how I came up with Phyllis Buckley, who has become one of the most popular characters in the entire series. So because she was so popular and because I loved her so much, I decided to include her in the whole series. And so it started out with just this name popped into my head when I thought, what do I want the neighbor to be like? Immediately, I had this image of what she was going to be like, kind of homespun, this old lady who you just never quite knew what she was going to do next. And just didn't care about what other people thought of her. And um, I just had this image of the woman in my mind, and the name came, and I could just see her with her scrawny little legs, and it was just the most amazing thing. And sometimes when I write, the name of the person, of the character will just pop into my head. I have no idea why it does that. It just comes to me. And sometimes the characteristics or the hair color or their personality type will just pop into my head. Other times I have to work a lot harder at it. But fortunately, Phyllis was one of those that just came to me out of the blue, and I grabbed onto it. So I want to read to you just a couple of pages from Blogging is Murder, where Jade, the protagonist, meets Phyllis for the very first time. I rang the doorbell expecting to go home empty-handed after having thought about the likelihood of her being at her place of employment. So I was startled when the door flew open and a wild-haired lady stood before me. Realizing I should have come up with a plan while I was driving, instead of singing along to the 80s tunes I had playing on the radio, I felt like a deer in headlights. Yes, dear? Connie's neighbor was smiling at me as she stood in the doorway waiting to find out what I was selling. She wore an old-fashioned house coat like my grandmother used to wear, along with tube socks and shower shoes on her feet. Her hair was pure snowy white and reminded me of Phyllis Diller. It was everywhere, like she had been caught in a windstorm after her morning shower. Hi, my name is Jade Blackwell, and I'd like to talk to you a little bit about your neighbor Connie, if you have the time. I smiled at her, hoping to give off a pure and innocent impression, so she would let me in and spill her guts. She cackled. Dear, I've got nothing but time. What you want to know? You weren't the first person to come knocking on my door about this horrible business. Who you with? The police? Newspapers? She looked me up and down. You don't look like neither of them types. I'm a friend of the woman who's the nearest thing to a suspect they have for the murder at the moment. I'm also a friend of the sheriff who's investigating. I'd like to learn more about Connie because I know my friend isn't a murderer. I would have shut the door in my face right then and there. She looked at me as if considering whether I was telling the truth or was a nut job who wanted into her home to hack her into little pieces. She cocked her head to the left, looked me up and down again before staring into my eyes in a way that felt as if she could read every naughty thing I'd ever done. I squirmed a little under her scrutiny. She must have decided that I didn't look like an axe murderer because she flung the door open and gestured for me to come inside. My name is Phyllis Buckley, but I don't know that I can tell you much that'll help. Connie was a strange bird, but she didn't deserve what she got. Oh, you don't think someone killed her? I asked as she showed me around her living room. Sitting room was a better description. It was like an old-fashioned parlor where people received visitors in the old days. There were doilies on every flat surface, including on the arms and headrest of the chairs and couch. Have a seat on the Davenport, since that's the most comfortable, and I'll go get us some tea. Oh, that would be nice, but please don't go to any trouble. She cackled again. Dear, it's a real treat to have a visitor, even if it's to discuss this horrible business next door. The least I can do is bring out the old teapot. She moved into the kitchen without another word, leaving me alone in her front room. So that's the first look at Phyllis that we get. Good old Phyllis. She gets a little bit more crazy and wild as we go along in the other books. I want to go ahead and read this next little section when they start getting themselves into trouble, the Jade and Phyllis. They had gone on to talk a little bit about Connie and what Phyllis knew about her, what her patterns were, what she had delivered to her house and that sort of thing. So this is Phyllis trying to talk Jade into something. So, since we're two curious gals, what you think about taking a peek inside Connie's house? Oh, we wouldn't mess it up or anything. We wouldn't mess up the investigation, mind. Just look around. Just satisfy our mutual curiosity. They long ago took down the crime scene tape. She squinted her eyes and glanced over at me, hoping she'd met a kindred spirit who would appease her guilt for wanting to snoop around. I didn't see the harm in it. The police had been over every inch of the place several times, and as Phyllis had said, we wouldn't do anything to jeopardize the case. But wait, how would we get in, Phyllis? I'm not comfortable picking locks and breaking in. I've only read about that. I'm not willing to do anything illegal. Phyllis chuckled and slapped her knee. Of course not, dear. I'd never do that, even if I had the nerve and the know-how. No, I've got a key, you see. We each had one to each other's place in case of emergencies. That's how the police found her, remember? You mean they didn't take the key from you? Nope. And in all the hubbub, I didn't think of it either. It only dawned on me when I started thinking about how I'd like to peek inside. Guess it was just an oversight, but a lucky one for us, if you're as curious as I am. She snuck another peek at me like a naughty child who's hoping to get away with a trespass by being demure. So that's how that's how Jade and Phyllis get into Connie's house and look around, and Jade finds her very first clue there, and so she knows that she's on the right track. So that is behind the scenes of one of my most popular characters, Phyllis Buckley. And if you have any questions, even if you're watching this later after the live, I don't see any comments right now, but if you have any comments or questions about Phyllis or about the book or about me or about Jane Eyre, my cat, my grand kitten, please pop them in the comments below and I'll be happy to comment back. I'll answer your questions for you. And I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday back here for Tea and Sympathy with Gillian Baker. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.